Hey there guys, this is Adam in Life, and we are looking at this screwdriver and bit case that I designed. This is one of the first designs I've ever done, and I'm very happy to be able to share it with you. Now, first thing out the bat, I'd like to mention that obviously this is rather specific to the driver set that I have, and while this driver set is still available on Amazon, you may not decide to buy it, and therefore this may seem less useful. However, this is still an opportunity to look at what I've done here and maybe replicate it for whatever set you might have. Or there's also the possibility that you might have a clone set, maybe not from the same manufacturer, but maybe the pieces still all fit. So I still think there's some value to this, even if you don't have exactly the same set that I have. The way these product videos are set up is in the first section we will have an overview of what exactly the item is, what it does, etc. And in the second section I'll go over any print settings that you may need, or recommended print settings I should say, as well as any assembly instructions. And then finally in the third section I'll talk about how I went about designing this, the steps I took. Also for fun, I go ahead and give you the total weight of the test prints that I did, just to see what the total price was for me to actually design this. So if any of those in particular interest you more than the others, feel free to skip ahead with the timestamps. Those will be in the description, should be set up as chapters, so you will also have that option on any viewing device that supports chapters. And otherwise, let's get into it. So here we have the case, and as you can see, everything is pieced together into one solid block. And then we just go ahead and take the screwdriver and the extension off the top here, and that allows us to get to the center section. As we take the center section out, you will see that there are slots in the top for extra bits. This case that I had 3 extra bits that did not fit into any of the little holders here that you're going to see, and therefore I made this section right here for them to hang out in. Then the center section pulls apart, and we've got 2 cartridges which hold the individual cartridges of the bits that just slide straight out. It can slide out either direction. Putting it back together, all you do basically is any bits that you took out of this part just go back in, and then you take the 2 major cartridges and put them back in. They piece together staggered so that the bits are in between each other. It takes up the least amount of room, that's why I did that way. And they just slide in, easy peasy. You can't really mess it up because they're rectangle and they're 2 different sizes. So that is how that goes back together, and then we just slide that back in the top. Then putting the screwdriver back on, you'll notice here that the 2 clips are actually different sizes. The larger size has a step down, and that's the side that gets the bigger end of the screwdriver. As for the extension, it doesn't really matter. It can go this way, that way, whichever way. And it just clips right in. Both clips are exactly the same. Now this design does have additional options to print in. What you're seeing right here is an updated version of the cartridge holder, which I did not print because I'm going to modify mine instead of printing a new one. And as you can see here, it's actually holes all the way through. And I didn't do this initially because I was going to plug these holes, but I decided that actually if we put the holes all the way through, then you can come up with your own plugs. One of those things, you can either print out plugs that are sized correctly, or you can get, for example, some kind of rubber plug, or however you like to go about it. I'm going to leave that one up to you. And basically it plugs in on both sides, and then to get the bit out, you push all the way through to the other side. Additionally, I have this version 1 of this bit case. Originally, those extra bits that I show you in the top, I never actually kept with the rest of the case because they weren't necessary. I didn't really have any uses for them. So I just had this smaller, more compact case that had all the cartridges in it, and that was good. But I decided for this release I may as well design one that could hold extra bits, and that's why we have 2 different ones. So as you can see, we just take that center cartridges out of the one cartridge holder, put them into the other, and then again the outer shell is going to be different because the cartridge holder is different. So those are the 2 changes there. Otherwise it's completely the same. Everything else fits just fine. Moving on to printing and assembly. This is an extremely straightforward section. Everything just prints the way you would expect it to print, vertically, with no overhangs and no supports. So it is very, very simple to get through. The only thing worth mentioning is that these clips do print separately, and those will be glued in, and that is the only piece of assembly we have for this video. You just grab your super glue, put it in the little slot there where the clip is going to be installed, and then align the clip. And here in the video you'll see that I just take a little this is actually an X-Acto knife, but you know, anything straight just to get it aligned to one side, and then we're done. And my favorite part of the video, the design process. So design process started off pretty simple, just got the size, the cartridge holder sized, you know, simple enough, got that done really quickly. It's a straightforward rectangle. Then I made up these little holders for the cartridges, and my original idea here was to have something like a drill index, and that was the idea. It was basically a drill bit index is what I was going to make. And here you can see that I had, you know, just a little tray to try to get in, didn't really work out too well. Then I made these little connector pieces to connect them individually. It's alright, it's whatever, it didn't really work out terribly well. Would have taken some effort to get it aligned correctly so that they actually laid down on each other. So I ended up moving away from this one. And then these two little bits right here, I have no idea why they were in the bag, but they were in the bag, so evidently I used them for something. And the next part was the first version of the cartridge shell, and as you can see, these are round. I put these rails to keep them in place. It's, you know, it's whatever, it wasn't really necessary. I do like the round shape a lot better. It's more appealing. It's just I started printing all these test pieces and then went, yeah, that is a lot of plastic, so I went to a much more streamlined shell. The last change I made to the design was finding an area to put the extra bits in, because I decided that I should probably have that in there. So you see this triangle test piece that I had, it was just a simple hole, and then they slid it in there. You could fit two of them in there. And let me grab the shell, and here you can actually see this triangle is actually cut out of the outer shell. So obviously the bits would just fall out. I made this little screw and plug here. The screws worked just fine when I first installed it, but what I want to show you on this next close-up, and you may not be able to see, is that the hex key that I put on the outside of it stripped out. So I abandoned that one, and I went the opposite way. I went for this inset hex shape, which then could be used with the extender to extract the bits. Unfortunately, that also stripped out, so we abandoned that one. And that brings us back to our current design. And again, if you're fine with making your own plugs, then go ahead and print out this plug type version. Otherwise, the open version works as well too. And now for the moment of truth. What does it all weigh? How much did it cost me to design this thing? And the total is 167 grams. 167 grams would be 0.167 kilograms, and that 0.167 kilograms times approximately $20 per kilogram of plastic brings us to $3.34. So $3.34, and then the additional two versions that I printed, the original compact version and the extended version. You can go ahead and figure out those prices yourself. Obviously, I included the extended version's price in the video. And that brings us to the end of this project video. Thank you very much for watching, and if you did enjoy it, obviously feel free to like, etc. All that other stuff we ask you to do on social programs. And I have links in the video description for both Thingiverse and printables to get the files so that you can print it yourself if this is useful and you can make use of it. As always, I hope you have a great and wonderful day, afternoon, or evening, wherever you're at in the world, and I will catch you next time.